Ever feel like just running and running and getting nowhere?
Yeah.
Like on a treadmill, going full speed but going nowhere.
Yeah, I think we all get that feeling sometimes.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. It's all about the art of going slow.
Yeah.
It's this book by Damon Zahariades. It's really interesting because it promises this simpler and more mindful way of life,
Right.
like really focusing on what matters instead of just doing more all the time.
I like that. Yeah.
So that's the big question, right? In this whole slow living thing, is it just a trendy thing or is it really a key to a better life?
I think it goes beyond just being trendy. I mean, Zaharias really digs deep into what it truly means, and it's not at all about being lazy or unproductive.
Right.
It's more about making intentional choices,
Yeah.
choices that align with your actual values.
That's a good point. Conscious choices.
Mm.
And speaking of choices, the book talks about a 10-step action plan to escape that hustle culture trap. One that really stood out to me was identifying negotiable commitments. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it's about recognizing those things, those obligations that we often feel pressured to do, but they might not really align with what's important to us.
Oh, I see.
Think about your typical week. Think of those meetings that you just dread, or those social events that you feel like you have to go to, or even just tasks that you're doing out of habit instead of, actually wanting to do them.
Right.
Zahariades basically says, hey, take a good look at those commitments and ask yourself, are these really necessary? Could I maybe delegate them? Or even better, could I just let them go completely?
So it's about being more selective, more intentional with your time and energy, freeing up space for the things that matter.
Exactly.
That's really insightful. Now, the book also mentions something called the 12 biggest payoffs of embracing a slower pace of life. Without giving away all the secrets, are there any surprising benefits that our listeners might not expect?
One of the most interesting payoffs that Zaharias talks about is the impact it has on relationships.
Oh, interesting.
When we're always rushing, we tend to interact with each other on a pretty superficial level, right? But when we slow down, when we create space for genuine connection, we actually become better listeners, more present and engaged in our conversations.
Right, I can see that.
And the quality of those interactions, it improves dramatically.
That makes sense. Deeper, more meaningful relationships. That's a huge plus.
Absolutely.
But I have to admit, when I first heard about slow living, I had my doubts.
Yeah.
The book even addresses the top 5 misconceptions people have about it.
It does, yeah.
What do you think is the biggest myth that people buy into?
I think a big one is that it requires some huge radical life change.
Right.
People think you have to quit your job, sell everything you own, and move to a cabin in the woods.
Yeah, the whole off-the-grid thing.
Exactly. And while that might sound appealing to some people, Zaharias emphasizes that it's really about those small, sustainable changes within your existing life.
So you don't have to drop everything and become a hermit.
Exactly. It's about tweaking your daily routines, changing your mindset, and making more conscious choices about how you spend your time, one step at a time.
So it's not about a drastic overhaul, but a gradual shift in how you see things.
Exactly.
It's about tuning out all the noise and distractions and really focusing on what matters.
That's it. And that's where the real power of this whole slow living thing comes in. It's not about rejecting ambition or achievement. It's about defining success on your own terms.
Right. It's personal.
It is. It's about aligning your actions with your values and creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling to you.
This has been so eye-opening. It seems like slow living isn't about doing less. It's about doing more of what really counts.
I think you've hit the nail on the head.
If our listeners could just implement one aspect of slow living today, what would you suggest they try?
That's a good one. I think I'd recommend trying Zahariades' suggestion of creating a calming morning routine.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Instead of starting your day in that frantic rush, take a few moments just to be present.
Right, just breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe enjoy a cup of tea in silence, do some gentle stretches, or maybe spend a few minutes journaling. Just starting your day with that intention can set a more mindful tone for the rest of the day.
That's a fantastic takeaway. Starting slow to set the pace for the entire day.
Exactly.
So to our listeners, if you could get back just 1 hour each day by embracing some of these slow living principles, what would you do with that extra time?
Well, that's a good question.
Would you finally tackle that passion project you've been putting off? Spend more time with loved ones? Or maybe just have some time for yourself to relax and recharge?
There are so many possibilities.
It's definitely something to think about. And maybe the art of going slow can be your guide on that journey.
It's a great resource for anyone looking to make a change.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. It's been a really insightful conversation.
It's been a pleasure being here.
And to all our listeners, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep going slow.
Until next time.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.